What you are about to hear in this video goes against everything you knew about your heart, and might even make you angry. You see, when I began to research about the heart in the Bible, and in many deep ancient texts, spiritual scrolls, lost gospels, and knowledge forums hidden in the corners of the internet, all in an effort to find out why most people never truly protect their heart the way they should, I was shocked about the hard truth I discovered. And by the way, what I found might make you question everything you thought you knew about your emotions, your relationships, and the very core of your soul. But if you stay till the end of this video, I promise I'll tell you everything. Before I go deeper, take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already. Tap that like button so this message reaches more chosen ones like you. For what I'm about to share with you has the power to gently shift your life's direction and inspire hope and healing in the lives of many. And share it with someone who needs a reminder that God can make a change. God bless you more. You see, the real reason you've never fully guarded and honored your heart is not what you think. It's not about being too nice. It's not about being too open. And it's not even about trusting the wrong people. And while most people fall into the same traps again and again, I still believe it's not entirely their fault. Because once you understand this truth I'm about to tell you, once you feel it in your spirit, you will finally understand why you've been played, drained, betrayed, and emotionally scattered. And more importantly, you'll know what to do starting today to stop the bleeding. One of the most important things to know as a chosen one is this. Your heart is not weak. It's your greatest weapon. Your heart is your power, your core, your divine frequency. And no one tells you that. They try to make you ashamed of it, to shut it down, to toughen up, to become emotionless and disconnected from your soul, just like them. But I am not talking about love in the shallow sense. I'm not talking about romance, lust, or feelings. I'm talking about the deepest chamber of your being, the seat of your spirit where truth and light reside. That is your real heart, and they've been after it from the beginning. You've been meant to believe that your heart is fragile, that it's a liability, something to hide and protect out of fear. But what if I told you that's the lie? What if I told you your heart is actually the strongest thing about you, and that's why they keep trying to break it? Let that sink in, because if your heart was weak, they wouldn't fight so hard to shut it down. You see, the real reason your heart has gone through so much pain isn't because you're broken. It's because you carry divine strength in your spirit. And this world was never built to handle that kind of light. This world, this fallen system, is allergic to divine hearts. Because the heart of the chosen one, when fully awakened, becomes dangerous to the matrix. You see, your heart was never meant to be common. It was handcrafted by the Most High for a mission, a purpose that shakes spiritual systems and exposes false light. But because of that, your heart became a target. Let me say it again. The reason you've been hurt, abandoned, misunderstood, and left out isn't because you're weak. It's because you're rare. And let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. It's easier for them to break you than it is for them to face themselves. That's why they toy with your emotions. That's why they breadcrumb you with affection. That's why they gaslight you into thinking you're too much or too intense. Because your heart exposes the lack in theirs. And most people can't sit in the presence of a heart that's pure without feeling the weight of their own darkness. They would rather dim you than evolve themselves. But let me tell you why this is dangerous for you as a chosen one. The more you let people play with your heart, the more you confuse their reaction with your value. And that's the trap. That's what the enemy wants. Because once you start questioning your heart, you stop listening to it. And once you stop listening to it, you stop moving in divine alignment. And chosen one, once you're out of alignment, your power gets scattered. You start pouring into the wrong people. You start tolerating less than what your spirit deserves. And worst of all, you stop hearing God clearly. Let me show you something straight from the Word. Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Most people read that and think, okay, so don't fall in love too fast. No, that's not what this is saying. This isn't about romance. This verse is about spiritual responsibility. It's a command, not a suggestion. Because what flows from your heart, your vision, your decisions, your frequency, your calling, everything flows through your heart, your destiny, your discernment, your creativity, your joy. And when you let people contaminate that, they're not just hurting your feelings, they're disrupting your anointing. You hear me? You don't play with that. You don't hand that over to just anybody because they seem cool. This is war. And the battlefield is your heart. The enemy is not interested in your money, your car, your career, or your likes on Instagram. He wants your heart. Because he knows, once he has your heart, he can hijack your mission. And once your mission is hijacked, you start living a life that looks successful on the outside, but dead inside. And that's how chosen ones lose themselves. Not in one big moment, but in a series of little heart betrayals. Let me ask you something, and be honest. How many times have you ignored the still, small voice inside, just to keep someone around? How many times have you shrunk your truth to make someone else feel comfortable? How many times have you said it's okay, when you were bleeding inside? Every time you do that, you chip away at your heart. And every chip becomes an open door for spiritual interference. Not everyone you love is safe for your spirit. Not everyone who says I love you is qualified to steward your heart. Because love is not a word. Love is a responsibility. Chosen one, hear me loud. Your heart is not entertainment. It is not a toy. It is not a playground for emotionally unavailable people to figure themselves out on. You are not a healing station for the broken who refuse to take accountability. You are not a rehab center for karmic cycles to repeat through. And I know it's hard to hear this, because you were built to love. You were wired to care. But that does not mean you were created to self-destruct in the name of connection. You were not sent here to bleed to death on the altar of understanding someone's potential. Let me say something real, and I want you to feel this in your bones. Your capacity to love does not mean you should offer it freely to the undeserving. Because even God, the very source of love, sets boundaries. Even God walks away. Even God says in Matthew 10 verse 14, "If anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet." You think you're being Christ-like by staying where you're dishonored? No, you're being manipulated. Christ left. He wept. He loved. But he left when dishonor entered the room. Why? Because your heart is sacred territory. And you, as a chosen one, cannot afford to allow just anyone access to your sacredness. There's a reason the Bible says in Jeremiah 17 verse 9, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Now listen, that verse isn't saying your heart is wicked. It's warning you that even your own emotions can be hijacked if you don't stay spiritually sober. You've got to guard the gates. That means your energy, your time, your thoughts, your love. Because once your heart is compromised, your decisions get cloudy. And when your decisions get cloudy, you start taking detours, and detours create delays. Let me tell you this with all the love I have. Some of you are not stuck. You're just emotionally entangled with the wrong people. And until you sever that tie, you will keep experiencing the same pain in different bodies, in different cities, in different jobs, under different names. Because what you allow to sit in your heart will eventually leak into your life. The wrong connections corrupt good character. The wrong soul ties weaken your discernment. The wrong environments harden your heart, not because you're cold, but because you're tired. And chosen one, when your heart gets tired, you begin to question your purpose. You start saying things like, maybe I'm not meant to love like this. Maybe I'm just too much. Maybe I need to toughen up and stop caring. But no, that's not the answer. The answer is not to shut your heart down. The answer is to guard it like a lion. Because it is your throne. It is where God whispers. It is where your assignment is confirmed. It is where your peace is born. And anything that threatens that sacredness has to go. Chosen one, when I say your heart is strength, I'm not talking about the surface level stuff. I'm not talking about being kind, or being soft, or having compassion, though those are noble traits. I'm talking about the spiritual engine that God placed inside you to carry the weight of divine truth. That's what makes your heart powerful. That's what makes your heart dangerous to the enemy. Because your heart carries blueprints. Visions that nobody else around you can even begin to comprehend. Your heart carries the frequency of a future that hasn't been created yet, but needs you to create it. And that's why so many people try to take advantage of it. Because your heart is a portal. It is the gateway between what's possible and what's real. It's where faith is born. It's where prayers are activated. It's where divine timing begins to move. So when someone tampers with your heart, they're not just messing with your feelings. They're interfering with the spiritual coding of your destiny. Let that sink in for a moment. This is why the attacks on your heart have been so personal, so brutal, so repetitive. Because the enemy knows, if he can get to your heart, he can delay everything God has prepared for you. Your blessings are not just locked behind obedience, they are also tied to emotional clarity. Because God can't pour divine instruction into a heart that's cluttered with confusion, heartbreak, and bitterness. The anointing flows best in purity. And I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about alignment. A clean heart is not a naive one. It's a focused one. It knows who it is and who it belongs to. Psalm 51 verse 10 says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." That verse isn't asking to be perfect. It's a prayer for realignment. Because even David, a man after God's own heart, knew. When your heart is out of order, your whole life starts spiraling. Listen to me. This world will praise you for being guarded, but God honors those who are aligned. Don't let pain twist your purity. Don't let betrayal harden your compassion. Don't let rejection make you forget your role in the kingdom. You are not just someone with a big heart. You are someone with a spirit-assigned heart. A heart that hears beyond words. A heart that senses danger before it shows up. A heart that feels grief in atmospheres that look normal to everyone else. That's not weakness. That's discernment. That's prophetic wiring. That's spiritual surveillance operating inside your chest. And you don't give that kind of wiring away casually. You don't play with that. You don't silence it for comfort or convenience. Because here's the truth most won't tell you. The moment you stop listening to your heart is the moment you start betraying your assignment. And every time you betray your assignment, the light within you dims. Not because you're not powerful, but because you're giving your power to the wrong frequencies. Let me ask you something. Who told you your heart was too much? Who convinced you that your deep love was a liability, that your intuition was too sensitive, that your truth was too intense? Let me tell you, that wasn't discernment talking. That was insecurity projecting. See, what they call too much, heaven calls chosen. What they dismiss as emotional, God calls in tune. They couldn't handle you because your presence exposed what they were unwilling to face in themselves. You weren't just loving them. You were holding up a mirror to their own spiritual apathy, to their unwillingness to grow, to the shadows they refused to heal. And because they didn't want to rise, they tried to shrink you. Because they couldn't control the weight of your heart, they tried to convince you to abandon it. But chosen one, your heart is your compass. Your heart is your gift. Your heart is how God speaks to you. Why do you think the enemy keeps aiming his darts there? Because if he can poison your heart with bitterness, if he can fill it with unforgiveness, if he can overwhelm it with confusion and self-doubt, then you will start to walk away from the very place your power was rooted in. And I need you to hear this next part like a divine alarm going off in your soul. You do not need to stop loving. You need to stop misplacing your love. You need to stop pouring your sacred oil into broken vessels that were never assigned to carry it. You need to stop writing chapters with people who were only supposed to be footnotes in your story. You need to stop justifying dysfunction in the name of spiritual growth. Not everything that tests you is meant to teach you. Some things are sent to distract you. And your heart knows the difference. You've just been trained to ignore its voice. You were told to be strong by shutting down your feelings. But real strength is not found in silence, it's found in discernment. Because sometimes, the strongest thing a chosen one can do is walk away. Sometimes, guarding your heart looks like saying no even when your soul wants to say yes. Sometimes, protecting your assignment means loving people from a distance so wholly even heaven nods in approval. That's not being cold. That's being wise. Proverbs 4 verse 23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Let me repeat that. Everything you do flows from your heart. That means if your heart is in bondage, so is your vision. If your heart is numb, so is your intuition. If your heart is distracted, so is your destiny. Do you see how serious this is? This is why your heart cannot be for everyone. This is why you can't afford to keep handing out keys to people who were never meant to enter your inner courts. They don't know what to do with you, and that's okay. Because you were never created to be understood by the average soul. You were created to move mountains with the purity of your intentions. You were created to shift atmospheres with the sound of your truth. You were created to break generational patterns with the weight of your healing. And none of that happens if you keep playing with your heart like it's ordinary. Your heart is not ordinary. It is holy technology. It's divine intelligence wrapped in flesh and feeling. It is God's fingerprint, beating between your ribs. Chosen one, now that you understand the true weight of your heart, you can't go back to handling it the same way. You can't keep casting your pearls before swine. You can't keep handing out sacred access to people who only came to collect energy, not build legacy. You can't keep shrinking the brilliance of your soul just to make broken people feel comfortable. Because you were not called to blend in, you were called to recalibrate the entire room. When you walk into a place with a clean, pure, warrior-hearted energy, things begin to stir. Not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. There are spiritual tremors that happen every time a chosen one fully remembers who they are. And now, you remember. You are a vessel of divine force, a bridge between realms, a walking reminder of God's authority on earth. You are not emotional, you are electric. You are not too much, you are too rare. You are not soft, you are strategic, and your softness is coded with fire. Listen to me. There's a reason you've survived everything that tried to crush your spirit. It's because your heart was built in a place no man can touch. It was formed in secret, in the dark, in the womb of the divine. That's why it still beats, even after betrayal. That's why it still loves, even after rejection. That's why it still forgives, even after the most unbearable pain. Because your heart is not just yours, it belongs to something eternal. But let me leave you with one final truth, chosen one. The enemy is no longer your greatest threat. You are. If you forget the power you carry, if you silence your own intuition out of fear, if you hand your sacredness to people who only come to consume and not to cover, you'll begin to sabotage yourself in ways the enemy never could. This is why self-awareness is spiritual warfare. This is why discernment is your lifeline. This is why guarding your heart is your highest assignment right now. Because everything that's about to be unlocked in your life, the next level of favor, the next wave of blessings, the next mission God is about to assign you to, will all flow through the condition of your heart. So clean it, protect it, sharpen it, but above all, don't play with it. Because you didn't come this far just to get distracted. You didn't survive hell just to build a home inside of it. You didn't lose everything just to stay stuck in bitterness. You were chosen, not to be perfect, but to be ready. And now you are. So move like it. Speak like it. Love like it. War like it. Because this world isn't waiting on another copy. It's waiting on you.